Trade reports are really starting to heat up for the Toronto Blue Jays as a brand new report has dropped revealing some big information as it pertains to the Toronto Blue Jays trade plans and also some interesting targets the Jays are pursuing. Write that down as well as discuss some interesting other updates surrounding the Jays as the trade deadline and trade talks start to inch closer and closer. So a ton to go over today. We also have a few injury updates, including one that is very encouraging. But before you get all that, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. You've been beasts. So thank you guys for that. And hopefully the Jays can continue winning. They had a big win yesterday against the Rangers. Also, bear with the setup here. I'm still traveling, so I'll be back at my home setup on Friday. But ladies and gentlemen, ton to go over today. Jays made history yesterday. Jacob deGrom, they didn't strike out against him for the first time in his career. All these different things. All that matters right now is the Jays winning. But dropped yesterday is a very interesting trade report that pertains to the Jays a lot. And let's just dive right into it here. So you can see this here. Teams, including the Jays, are scrambling to bolster their bullpens with an influx of injuries around baseball. And the top targets right now are Kyle Finnegan, Felix Bautista, Seranthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, David Bednar, Dennis Santana, and Anthony Bender. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, obviously at this point, the Jays, is their number one issue going to be the bullpen? No, but they've been dealing with a ton of injuries, and we know the Jays are always active in the trade market. And teams right now are scrambling to bolster their bullpens because of the injuries. And there's a lot of teams that were supposed to be good that have kind of fallen out of favor here. Obviously, most notably the Baltimore Orioles. And you can see some of their players there. Basically, all of their bullpen, the entire back end of their bullpen is up on the trade block. But not only that, you're at a point now where if you're the Jays, you have some sort of bullpen depth, but Jimmy Garcia's been down with an injury. Nick Sandlin's been down with an injury. Eric Swanson's been down with an injury. If you want to help your bullpen already, which has been heavily taxed thus far throughout the season, this would be a very good time to do so. And it seems that the Jays are among those teams scrambling. We assume that they're going to be going for one of these names. Now, as it pertains to what specific player we're talking about here, we'll dive into that in a minute. But there's a lot of good names available, and a lot of these teams are already, dedicated to being sellers. And it's even though we're only a bit over 50 games into the year, Pirates, they're really bad. There's even been rumblings about them trading Paul Skeens. The Marlins, bad every year. The Orioles are just a complete disaster. They fire Brandon Hyde. He clearly wasn't the problem. The team still sucks. But Felix Bautista, Gregory Soto, those are two really good names, specifically Bautista. But of course, the problem is, as it relates to the Jays specifically, they're not, most likely, the Jays aren't going to be acquiring a reliever from the Baltimore Orioles. However, one name in particular here, Kyle Finnegan, would make a lot of sense for this Blue Jays team. And there's been some, links to Kyle Finnegan, which we'll dive into in a minute here. But there was also a big piece of information that dropped surrounding David Robertson. And we've covered him on the channel a lot. And there was a lot of fans, Jays fans, all different fans, scrambling to figure out why the Jays didn't go out and get a guy like David Robertson in both free agency, but also after they went down dealing with some injuries. You can see here, teams who inquired on David Robertson during the winter say he was seeking a 1-year, $15 million deal. He has no plans to sign with a new team now unless he receives a strong offer. So that kind of puts that to bed. For those wondering why the Jays didn't go after him, for those wondering why, in general, he wasn't signed, he's looking for a $15 million deal, which, at its surface is a very expensive amount. That's more AAV than Jeff Hoffman got. Of course, Jeff Hoffman, 3 years, $33 million. It's 11, and he's looking for 15. And he's older. He's a very good pitcher. But for $15 million, it almost seems like he wants to kind of not necessarily retire, but he's not in a rush to play for a major league team right now. And he's probably coasting to retirement. So he's not going to be playing, at least on the Jays, anytime soon. They don't have $15 million. They're just going to give out for a reliever at this juncture. I think they'd much rather trade. And it's a very interesting report that dropped here surrounding David Robertson. Let me know down below also, would you have given David Robertson $15 million? You're getting Jimmy Garcia for $7.5 million a year. And I have more faith in Jimmy Garcia being good than I do David Robertson this year, just given the fact that Jimmy Garcia has A, been really good this season, of course, hindsight, but B, he's been good in his entire Jays career. But let's talk about Kyle Finnegan now. Now, you look at his stats here, and he's a very solid reliever. Is he elite? He's had some elite numbers this year. He was an all-star last year. I think this is a guy that just immediately helps your bullpen. You can see, looking at some of his stats here, a 2.41 ERA in, of course, 19 games. He's been the closer, 16 games finished for the Washington Nationals there, and it's very interesting. And at the end of the day, I think for this Toronto Blue Jays team, getting another righty reliever, and they have a bunch of lefties, Mason Flaherty, Brennan Little, getting a righty reliever who can just go in and help take care of innings in the back end of the bullpen. And even if, let's assume healthy, Jimmy Garcia's back, you have Jeff Hoffman for the ninth. Adding one more guy like a Kyle Finnegan, who's only 33 years old. Again, he's not super old or anything. You can put him into the back end of the bullpen, even the seventh inning. And having a seventh inning of Finnegan, Jimmy Garcia, Jeff Hoffman would be huge. But also, he's pitched 18 innings thus far. It's not a crazy amount. It's also not a small amount either. But at the end of the day, this Jays team, and one of the reasons that they're going to need relievers, which again, they do need more hitting, they need more power, and maybe they'll look to acquire that at the trade deadline. I think they will as they get closer and closer. But outfielders and hitters don't become available as soon as relievers do, because teams that are they know they're going to be selling, they're willing to give up the relievers now because it doesn't necessarily change the outlook of your team drastically. To be able to get a guy like Kyle Finnegan would make a ton of sense, even if it's just to help relieve some of the duties off of all these bullpen arms. Because the way and the rate this is going, injuries are going to continue to pile up. Players are going to be exhausted. We saw Jeff Hoffman, prior to getting some rest, had a brutal stretch of games. Jimmy Garcia even had a couple bad stretches of games. I mean, you have other guys who can fill in: Chad Green, Mason Flaherty, there's a bunch. Fisher has been really, really good for the Toronto Blue Jays. Jacob Fisher, through his however many games he's played here as a rookie. And at the end of the day, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. But the reports remain the same. The Jays are interested, and teams are bolstering the scramble to augment their bullpen. And I don't think it's going to be an Orioles player, but I think Kyle Finnegan, even David Bednar and Dennis Santana, the Pirates, Anthony Bender, all these guys, according to these new reports, I believe it's from Mark Fonsen, are all in on these guys. One also, quick note here, the Jays are among discussed teams for the All-Star game. You can see here the Toronto Blue Jays and Baltimore Orioles are firmly in the mix, with all three teams expected to host the All-Star game from 2027 to 2029. So it seems like even though the Cubs are probably going to be the 2027 All-Star game hosts, the Jays at some point in there with the newly renovated stadium finally get their opportunity. So makes sense. Really excited. And we deserve an All-Star game. It's been a very long time. And of course, with the new renovations, I mean, there's no better place to do it right now than Toronto. So my guess is 2028, 2029, somewhere in there, they'll get things done. But at the end of the day, it's a quick note there for that. A few other things here. Jimmy Garcia had a cortisone shot in his shoulder, and he'll be down throwing for a couple of days before setting next steps. And this, again, directly correlates to these relievers. I mean, you have Jimmy Garcia down. Who knows how long this injury is going to be out for? He's on the IL, I believe the 15-day IL. These things tend to last a while, right? Let's say his 15-day IL stint is actually 15 days. That's still, a couple of weeks. And if it ends up going longer, you're going to need some more relievers. And yes, you can hope for relievers down in AAA, all these different things. But for a team that's trying to win now, depending on how they go, they're going to be looking at a magnitude of other options, especially with the way the the schedule is going. You beat the Rangers, you, of course, play them again today. And then beyond that, you have some, hopefully some easier games against the Athletics there. But let me know down below what your thoughts are on this. Trade reports are heating up. Things are really going to start picking up. And hopefully as well with Max Scherzer, like I covered yesterday, things start to pick up there, which can help lengthen the starting rotation, which ultimately in turn helps the bullpen out, because Jimmy Garcia has been ran to the ground, Jeff Hoffman's been ran to the ground, and hopefully the Jays can get some reinforcements here soon. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. And it's going to be a wild one. And hopefully the Jays can take care of business tonight against the Rangers.